There is an episode of Even Stevens that I remembered as a harmless musical classic, and after rewatching it as an adult, I have one question. Why did no one call a doctor, a parent, a school nurse, NASA, or possibly FEMA? Because Influenza the Musical is not just the episode where Ren Stevens sings about going to the moon in 1969. That is the version nostalgia sold us. Nostalgia put a little Disney Channel glitter on it, handed us a Capri Sun, and said, "Don't worry about the public health crisis happening in the background, just clap on beat." But adulthood has ruined me, so now I cannot simply watch a sick child hallucinate a full campus musical because she is afraid of losing perfect attendance and say, "Aw, classic Disney Channel." No, I see evidence. I see a child with influenza being pressured by the unholy demon of middle school achievement culture. I see a family that thinks one humidifier and an old VHS tape can treat what appears to be a full psychological collapse. I see a junior high where the principal sings morning announcements like a man trying to win custody of a tap shoe. I see Coach Tugnut running a physical endurance test that looks less like gym class and more like a lawsuit with monkey bars. And by the end, Ren delivers a science presentation that contains basically one fact. We went to the moon in 1969. Not 1968. Not 1970. That is not a presentation. That is a fact trapped in a hostage negotiation. So today, we are putting Influenza the Musical on trial. We are investigating how one sick day became a fever dream, how one moon lyric colonized the brains of an entire generation, and how this weird little episode may have helped open the door for the Disney Channel musical empire. Because before High School Musical told us we were all in this together, calm down guys, I just said that. Sheesh. Ren Stevens was alone in 6th period, sweating through a school day, singing one space fact like her GPA depended on it. And honestly, it kinda did. Influenza the Musical aired as part of Season 2 of Even Stevens, January 25th, 2002, which is rude information because that means this episode is old enough to rent a car and complain about lower back pain. Even Stevens itself was already one of Disney Channel's weirdest live-action sitcoms. It was fast, it was awkward, it had Shia LaBeouf operating at the energy level of a feral raccoon who found pixie sticks under a school bus. It had Ren Stevens, played by Christy Carlson Romano, as the overachieving sister who treated every school event like she was one failure away from being exiled to a lighthouse. And then, right in the middle of all that, they made a musical episode. Not a little song, not a fantasy sequence, not one special episode where everyone learns about teamwork through acoustic guitar. No, a real musical episode. Songs everywhere, dancers in the hallway, faculty members doing backup vocals, gym class choreography, a moon landing presentation with the informational density of a Snapple cap. And if you grew up with this episode, the memory is probably simple. Ren got sick, everyone sang, and the moon song entered your brain permanently. There are people who cannot remember where they put their car keys, but the second someone says 1969, their soul stands up like a sleeper agent. As a kid, I remembered this episode as fun. I remembered the songs. I remembered Louie trying to escape Jim. I remembered the way the show leaned into being ridiculous without winking too hard at the camera. What I did not remember is that the entire plot is basically Ren Stevens having an academic panic attack so intense that her fever invents musical theater. So here is the case. Did Even Stevens create a harmless musical classic? Yes. Did it also create a disturbing portrait of childhood perfectionism, public health negligence, and a school system where children can apparently stumble into class with influenza as long as they have a good attendance record? Also, yes. We are going scene by scene to determine whether this episode holds up, whether Ren is actually the victim, whether Larry Beale is legally allowed to enjoy someone's first F this much, and whether the real villain of the episode is not Lewis, not Coach Tugnut, but the idea that a perfect attendance award is worth losing your grip on reality. And before we present Exhibit A, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Think of it as signing Ren's absence note after the fact. She needs documentation. This child has been through enough, and the least we can do is help her algorithmically recover from 6th period. Alright, the episode begins with Ren in bed, visibly sick with the flu. She is not dealing with a tiny sniffle. This is not one of those Disney Channel illnesses where a character coughs once and suddenly everyone brings them soup. Ren is down. Eileen tells her she needs to stay home. Correct parenting. Adult failure count remains at 0 for the moment. Everyone enjoy this brief era of competence while it lasts. But Ren is devastated because she is going to miss school, which means she will lose her perfect attendance award. And already, I need us to pause. Perfect attendance awards were one of the strangest artifacts of childhood. They were basically schools saying, "Congratulations! You either have an incredible immune system, or your parents sent you here while contagious. Here is a certificate that says society was proud of your germs." Ren hears "stay home and recover," and her brain hears "your reputation has been murdered in the hallway" by Larry Beale. And Larry is important here because he is Ren's rival. Ren is not just afraid of missing school, she is afraid Larry will rub it in her face. That is the emotional stakes of the episode. One absence, one award, one smug middle school boy waiting to weaponize attendance data. So Ren is lying in bed with a humidifier, Mr. Pookie, and an old musical her mom puts on to distract her. This is where the episode quietly plants the seed for everything. The old VHS has a singing cowboy performing a song about 1869, and that tune is going to come back later as the melody for "We Went to the Moon."
I'm riding the range in 1869. I'm sitting on my best pal named Curly.
That is actually clever. The fever dream is not random. Ren's brain takes the last thing she watched, melts it together with school anxiety, and produces the most educational earworm Disney Channel ever made. And that cowboy is the single most important character in this episode, and he is on screen for about 15 seconds. Also, fun fact we will come back to, the cowboy is played by the actual director of the episode. Unfortunately, instead of seeing this as a sign that her child is dangerously obsessed with school attendance, Eileen leaves Ren alone with Steen, a stuffed animal, and a musical cowboy. Adult failure count, 1. Public health violation counter, warming up. Meanwhile, Lewis sees Ren being sick and thinks, this looks useful. He decides to fake an illness to get out of Coach Tugnut's physical endurance test. Not the flu, not a normal fake cough. He invents a blend of flu and mucus he calls Flucus, because Ren Stevens does not commit fraud halfway. If he is going to fake a disease, he is going to make the CDC Google itself. His father, Steve, puts a hand on his forehead and delivers one of my favorite dad line readings in the whole series.
So, am I burning up or what?
I don't know. I'm just resting my hand while I look for something.
This right here is comedy writing genius. Chef's kiss. Lewis is sent to school anyway, dressed in one of the most early 2000s Lewis outfits imaginable. Loud shorts, weird shirt, total confidence. This child dressed like a discontinued Nickelodeon couch cushion and somehow made it a personality. Now, on a normal episode of Even Stevens, Lewis faking Flucus would be the whole plot, but here it is just the appetizer, because Ren, the actual sick child, decides she is going to school anyway. Public health violation counter, 1. And look, I understand that this is a dream structure. I know the show is not asking us to treat every detail like a real-life attendance policy, but the premise is still wild. Ren is so locked into achievement mode that she would rather become patient 0 at Lawrence Junior High than let Larry Beale win a certificate-based argument. This is not ambition. This is cortisol, wearing a backpack. Ren arrives at school, signs in at Principal Wexler's office, and immediately the episode reveals its first major symptom. Everyone is singing.
Lawrence Junior High, won't you lend me an ear? I hope this PA system is loud and clear.
Wexler breaks into morning announcements, backed by office staff and students who apparently came to school prepared for a full production number before the first bell. This is where the episode really starts to work, because Ren reacts like a normal person trapped in a musical. She is confused. She is alarmed. She knows something is off, but because she is Ren Stevens, she is also still trying to stay polite about it. The morning announcements cover normal school information, but in full musical style, because the fever dream has decided that administration is vaudeville now. And then Wexler mentions detention, and of course there's one name on the list, Ren Stevens. Cut to Lewis lounging outside with a slushie, like he has already accepted his destiny as the school's most charming public nuisance. This is why Even Stevens worked. Lewis is chaos, but not in a boring troublemaker way. He has texture. He is not just misbehaving. He is curating a lifestyle. And fan sites are right to point out that Morning Announcements is a strong opener because it announces the rules of the episode. This is not going to be serious musical theater. Adult failure count. 2, because Wexler is singing instead of noticing that Ren looks like a frail Victorian child hopping into a hanky near a window. Ren leaves the office and runs into Lewis, Twitty, and Tawny. Lewis explains that he has to survive Coach Tugnut's physical endurance test in 6th period. And Lewis, being Lewis, insists he will find a way out.
I'm not strong, I'm not fast. When it comes to endurance, I just can't last. So I'll get out of gym like I have in the past.
This launches I Always Find a Way, which is basically a musical number about being proud of your own dishonesty. It is not a character song, it is a confession with choreography. Lewis dances through the hallway explaining that he can escape consequences through excuses, lies, and sheer theatrical nerve. Tawny and Twitty back him up because apparently this school has a peer support program for mild fraud.
A powerful sneeze. Tawny filled your ears up with cottage cheese and said it was because of my sweat allergies. That one got me out of gym with ease.
This is also where the episode gives us Tawny's misunderstood shirt, which is such a perfect 2002 Disney Channel wardrobe choice that it deserves its own Smithsonian display between a studded belt and a stack of burned CDs labeled LimeWire Do Not Open. The number ends with Coach Tugnut popping out of Lewis's own locker to inform him that today he will not find a way, which raises a question the episode refuses to answer. How long was a grown man inside a child's locker waiting for a musical cue? Was he in there during the verse about the cottage cheese? But it works because the episode is built out of dream logic. In a fever dream, of course, your gym teacher is in your locker. Where else would he be? The copy room? Be serious. This is where the episode makes one of its smartest choices. Even though everyone is singing, the songs still reveal character. Lewis's song sounds like Lewis. It is jazzy, slippery, goofy, and slightly proud of being a mess. Shia LaBeouf is not pretending to be a Broadway vocalist, he is performing Louis Stevens with melody attached. And that is why the episode has charm. It is not polished into death, it still feels like even Stevens. It just has tap shoes now. At lunch, Ren meets Ruby and Nelson and tries to process the fact that her school has become a musical. Then Ruby and Nelson mention the science presentation due in 6th period, and Ren freezes because she forgot. Ren Stevens, the human clipboard, the girl who probably alphabetizes emergency contacts for fun, forgot a major science project. This is where the episode stops being simply silly and starts being spiritually violent. The one child who builds her identity around preparedness is suddenly unprepared, sick, and trapped in a school-wide musical hallucination. Cue What's the Matter with Ren, which is one of the best songs in the episode because it takes Ren's meltdown and turns it into a public inquiry.
What's the matter with Ren? She's usually so responsible. Tell me, could it be possible? She's losing her touch. What's the matter with Ren?
Ruby, Nelson, Larry, and the student body basically gather around to diagnose her. Not medically, socially, academically. The entire cafeteria becomes a Greek chorus asking why Ren is broken. This is a nightmare scenario for an overachiever. Forget the singing. The singing is not the scary part. The scary part is everyone noticing you forgot something. Now take a second here to listen to Nelson's singing voice.
What's the matter with Ren? She's usually so reliable, but her flakiness is undeniable. Oh, this is too much. What's the matter with Ren?
More like, what's the matter with him? Why does he sound so strange? You won't believe the reason why. I'll explain that reason later in the video. Larry Beale joins in because of course he does. Larry has the energy of a child who would laminate his own insults. And if the episode has a villain, it is not even Larry exactly. Larry is doing what Larry does. The real villain is the school culture that made Ren believe one forgotten project means total identity collapse. 6th period. Doomsday clock is ticking. Ren bolts to the computer lab to salvage the project because in 2002, the internet was both a miracle and a haunted vending machine. Ren goes to the computer lab to research the space program. Lewis is also there, naturally, trying to find excuses to avoid gym class. And I love that detail. Ren uses the internet for academic rescue. Lewis uses it for excuses.com. Same building, same computers, completely different relationship with civilization. This is also one of the most early 2000s sequences in the episode. The chunky computers, the school lab, the sense that a website could load one sentence and then immediately betray you. This is not nostalgia. This is trauma, with a progress bar. Ren finds the only piece of information the universe will give her. Man first landed on the moon in 1969. Moon fact counter, 1. And then the computer shuts down. That is it. That is her research. One date, one historical event, no names, no context, no Apollo 11, no Neil Armstrong, no Buzz Aldrin, no Cold War, just the year. This is where the plot becomes legally fascinating. Because Ren is not building a presentation. Ren is building a life raft out of a single sentence. Then the computers crash, the pressure of 6th period arrives, and the episode bursts into 6th period, which might be the most accurate depiction ever made of school anxiety.
6th period, 6th period, 6th period. 6th period is drawing near.
Not because it is realistic, but because it understands the feeling. 6th period in this episode is not a class. It is a monster. It is the final boss of adolescence. It is the time of day when your immune system, your GPA, and your will to live all meet in the hallway and decide who survives. The song cuts between Ren's panic, Lewis's gym dread, and Steve and Eileen realizing Ren is not at home.
Steve, Ren's not in her bed. You better find her.
Yeah, let's hustle.
And yes, Steve and Eileen react by dancing. Adult failure count, 4. Your sick child is missing, and your first instinct is a disco interlude? Maybe find the child before the choreography. And this is the exact moment where nostalgia stops protecting the episode. Because now Ren is not just having a goofy musical day, she is hallucinating a complete academic disaster while her parents discover she has vanished from bed. Lewis is marching toward a gym class designed by a man with dodgeball in his bloodstream, and the only fact anyone has learned is still 1969. Now we arrive at Lewis's 6th period, Coach Tugnut's physical endurance test. And I need everyone to understand that this gym class is not education. It is a boot camp run by a man who probably snorts creatine. Lewis attempts one last excuse, green nose. He puts green paint on his nose and claims some kind of condition that makes him shout random phrases, including a demand that his mommy bring him his buttercup. This is absurd, but it is also very Lewis. He does not just lie, he does character work. Tugnut does not buy it, because even in a fever dream, some adults can identify face paint. And so we get his villain anthem, which he opens wearing a discarded soccer ball on his face as a Phantom of the Opera parody, which is the kind of joke you put in a kid's show purely to entertain the parents and the theater kids, and I salute it. The obstacle course includes a treadmill, physical challenges, and the infamous Cage of Doom with what appears to be an angry gorilla. I need everyone to slow down and sit with this. Where did the gorilla come from? Who signed for the gorilla? What line item of the school budget is the gorilla? Is the gorilla also faculty? Does the gorilla have tenure? Fan trivia also notes that the treadmill appears not to be moving while Tugnut is supposedly running on it. The boys force Tugnut through his own course, and the number just sort of ends with him trapped in the Cage of Doom being smothered by the gorilla. And then the episode cuts away. Does he survive? Probably. Should the faculty union be informed? Immediately. But again, this is the nightmare structure doing the heavy lifting. Ren is not actually watching this scene, which makes it even stranger. If this is all Ren's fever dream, why is her brain staging a complete Lewis subplot without her present? That is not a complaint. That is a question for her subconscious. Ren's brain is apparently producing B-plots now. She has the flu and showrunner anxiety. Back in science class, Larry Beale presents his project. And Larry, being the most irritating child in the Sacramento school district, has built a machine that turns liver into chocolate. I'm sorry? What? This is 8th grade science fair? This child has developed culinary alchemy. This is not a school project. This is a Nobel Prize brought to you by Hershey's. If Larry Beale can turn organ meat into dessert using a laser, then he should not be competing with Ren Stevens for a medal. He should be in a government facility with 12 non-disclosure agreements and a man named Agent Rick asking what else the machine can transform. Ren now has to follow that. She has no project. She has no research. She has one fact, one lonely little moon fact, shivering in the corner, trying to become a presentation. Ruby and Nelson encourage her anyway, because they are good friends, and also because the fever dream requires witnesses. Ren stands up. She prepares to present. And then the episode gives us the moment that escaped the show and entered millennial folklore.
We went to the moon in 1969. Not 1968, but a year later.
Ren sings, "We went to the moon in 1969." And that is basically the presentation. Not entirely. There are extra lyrics, there is staging, there is a dramatic space sequence. Shia LaBeouf appears as the moon, which is the kind of sentence that makes you realize television used to be freer. She does not explain the Apollo program. She does not identify the astronauts. She does not give context for the space race.
We went to the moon in 1969, not 1970, but a year sooner.
She mostly confirms the year, clarifies that it was not 1968, and adds the groundbreaking scientific observation that everyone felt fine. And here is the thing. It is hilarious because it is exactly what panic feels like. Who among us has not tried to inflate one piece of information into an entire presentation? Ren is not giving a report. She is trying to reach the word count out loud. This song is the audio version of making your essay font 14.5 and hoping the teacher does not notice. But because Christy Carlson Romano can actually sing, and because the melody is weaponized catchiness, it works. That is the real crime. The content is garbage, the performance is delightful. She is failing academically, but thriving theatrically. And that is why people remember it. If this had been a boring, failed presentation, no one would care. But the episode turns Ren's worst academic nightmare into the catchiest piece of moon propaganda since NASA had a logo. For about 2 minutes, you are watching a child bomb in real time, and you are also thinking, wait, why is this a bop? That is the Even Stevens magic. It should not work. It works. Ren finishes, proud of herself, because in the moment she believes she has pulled it off. And then she gets an F.
I know, Larry. That's why Ren is receiving a failing grade. I'm failing? I got an F?
Larry Beale immediately launches into the Ren got an F reprise, because Larry has been waiting his whole life for this moment. He does not just enjoy Ren's failure, he musical theater enjoys it. There is a difference. This is where I start feeling bad for Ren. Yes, she made terrible choices. Yes, she brought germs into a school. Yes, her presentation had the academic value of a bumper sticker. But she is sick, terrified, and trapped inside the worst possible version of her own brain. The episode knows this. Under the jokes, it is surprisingly honest about pressure. Ren is not upset because she loves certificates. She is upset because she thinks excellence is the only thing keeping her safe. She has built an identity so rigid that one sick day feels like a public execution. And then everyone sings about it. That is a nightmare. Ren finally screams for everyone to stop singing and wakes up. Relief? Except no. Because she goes downstairs and her family starts singing the same tune about how there will be no award because she missed a day of school. This episode has dream layers. Disney was doing Inception before the movie ever came out. Because even Dream Family Steve and Eileen are emotionally insensitive in harmony. Ren screams again and wakes up for real. Finally, she is actually in bed. The nightmare is over. School is over for the day. Her perfect attendance is gone. And here, the episode lands its actual emotional point. Ren is disappointed, but also relieved. The pressure is off. The final scene is Lewis bringing Ren hot soup. A nice brother moment, sweet, simple, comforting. And then he starts singing the hot soup line to the same tune. Ren screams, perfect ending. Because Lewis has not heard Ren's dream version of the song, to him, he is probably just echoing the cowboy musical from the tape. But to Ren, that melody is now associated with academic humiliation, fever hallucinations, Larry Beale's smug little face, and one of the most stressful sixth periods ever committed to television. This is Pavlovian moon trauma. The episode ends with Eileen and Lewis confused, which is fair. From their perspective, Ren is screaming because someone brought soup with too much melody. But we know. We were there. We saw the moon. We survived sixth period. Here is the part of the story that happens off screen, and it is somehow crazier than the gorilla. Disney Channel did not want this episode. When the idea of a musical episode was pitched, the network was not interested. Executives did not believe a musical comedy episode would work on their channel. The people who eventually built an empire on teenagers spontaneously singing said no to teenagers spontaneously singing. It got made anyway because of three guys with history. Director Sean McNamara had done plays in high school with a comedy writer named Jim Wise. John Coda, the show's composer, had been in a band with McNamara. Their pitch to Disney was essentially, "We have been doing this since high school, trust us." And here's the detail that rearranged my brain. Jim Wise, the man who wrote the lyrics to every single song in this episode, is Coach Tugnut. The Gorilla Man wrote the whole musical. The villain of the gym composed the soundtrack of your childhood. Here is another fun fact. Every cast member sang with their own real voice except one. Remember Nelson's voice sounding strange? Nelson's singing voice was Jim Wise doing an impression of what Nelson might sound like, which means Coach Tugnut also ghost sang for a child. And the legacy. The episode was a hit, the network noticed, and the same production company carried the musical format to That's So Raven. Then Disney greenlit a little movie called High School Musical, and the then president of Disney Channels Worldwide, Gary Marsh, said that movie would not have been possible without the success of this episode. Follow the chain, High School Musical, Hannah Montana, Camp Rock, Descendants. The entire music industrial complex of the Disney Channel, an assembly line that manufactured Miley Cyrus and printed a decade of money, all of it traces back to one episode that the network initially rejected about a girl who should have stayed in bed. Ren Stevens got the flu, and the flu got a record deal. So does Influenza, the musical, hold up? Yes, it is a Disney Channel masterpiece. Final verdict. Influenza the musical absolutely holds up as one of the strangest and most memorable Disney Channel episodes ever made. Is it logical? No. But it is also smart. It takes Ren's perfectionism seriously enough to make it funny and just sincere enough to make it meaningful. It gives Lewis a classic scam song. It lets Wexler turn announcements into cabaret. It gives Coach Tugnut a gym dictatorship. It gives Larry Beal the most petty victory lap imaginable. And it gives us one moon fact that will outlive us all. And the reason people remember it is not only the melody. It is because this episode feels like childhood TV at its most chaotic. Low stakes, high energy, weirdly ambitious, emotionally specific, and completely unafraid to look stupid. Childhood television was not clean or logical. It was a humidifier, a VHS tape, a sick kid, and Shia LaBeouf dressed as the moon. And somehow, we all survived. So now I want to know, was Ren Stevens a victim of toxic perfectionism, or did she bring this entire fever dream on herself? And more importantly, be honest. Is this the only reason you remember what happened in 1969? Tell me what you think in the comments. Also, let me know what show and episode you want me to cover next. And I can't go without sending a giant thank you to the Nostalgia Club members. You all are the reason this show is here. I appreciate you all so much. If you would like to become a member, there is a link below in the description. Thank you all, and I will see you all next time.